Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, the interview conducted by Tucker Carlson with Vladimir Putin ended about 20 some minutes ago. I watched the entirety of that interview, and I can tell you how it occurred. This was the setting in the Kremlin, and we're going to talk about what was asked, what was answered. We're going to talk about the body language and a conclusion. I will also play a clip at the end to show you what was Putin's answer regarding negotiations. So basically Ukraine. It was not about Ukraine, the whole thing. It was about the West, it was about the past, it was about NATO, it was about Bush, it was about Clinton, Bill Clinton, it was about Bush the elder, Bush the illiterate, or whatever we want to call him, Boris Johnson, German interest, French interest, British interest, United States interest, elite's interest, Russia's interest, Ukraine's interest. So this was what, about 2 hours and some, the whole interview was 2 hours and 7 minutes. Well, it was not really 2 hours and 7 minutes because Tucker entered or started it with a short introduction in which he explained that Vladimir Putin had a little history lesson at the beginning for about half an hour, which is true. So this is how it started. Hello, how are you? Good, and so on. Then Tucker asked him about Ukraine. Why did you invade Ukraine? Why did you do it now? Things like this. And then Vladimir Putin cut him off from the very beginning. Cut him off and said, "You know what? I thought we were going to have a serious conversation here. We're not going to have a, he didn't say it, but I say it like an American how do you call it? Fun conversation or gotcha conversation. He thought we're going to have a serious conversation, then we're going to have a serious conversation." Tucker said yes. He didn't expect what Putin was about to say, so he's not sensationalist conversation. It was not that kind of interview. It was serious because I would say, however you want to look at it, this interview could not have been conducted like this with Joe Biden. Or I would say with other leader that I know, Scholz. I heard Scholz speak. I heard other Western leaders speak, maybe with the exception of Macron, who is able to, be outside of we're good, they're bad, and, being fantastic. So it was a serious conversation. Putin started for about 30 minutes and he explained what is Ukraine. Started with history. That's his take. That's his history. He talked about Ukraine, how Ukraine, the one at the fringe at the end, talked about the Polish, who, in his opinion, influenced the Ukrainian language and culture, trying to change it from a Russian culture. Now, you got to listen to all that. He started from whenever until the present. He went and spoke about how Russia acquired territories, how Kiev was, how Moscow was. I'm not going to go into the history because if you want to listen to it, he makes his own lecture over there. Nevertheless, his point is this. Ukraine is not a country, that's what he said. Ukraine was a creation of more than one countries done by Lenin, Stalin, Second World War, First World War, Second World War, and then 1991. He says that there's no such a thing, this is my conclusion, don't kill the messenger, or a Ukrainian nation, but it's a Russian nation, the same people, different influence. In the case of Ukraine, they are of many influences, including Polish influences. He said that basically we have the same culture, we have the same, almost the same language, we have the same religion, and people from outside try to change that. Now, Tucker tried to get again to the Ukraine, like, why did you attack Ukraine? Why did you attack Ukraine? And again, Putin, this was the conversation. Tucker relaxed after a while with asking that question because Putin did not allow him, and allow that conversation to go that way. Putin was talking like this, like in any situation, if you want to find out what's happening, you ask both sides. This is only one side, right? This is Russia side. This is Putin's side. Russia side. Let's say like that. He's not, I think, far away from what the common Russian is thinking about these events. So in order to understand, you have to understand the context, and you have to understand both sides, or the, how do you call it, various witnesses also observed, or people implicated as well. Now, in order to start with context, you have to start from the point A, from the beginning, which Putin did, and then set the context, right? And put in the context, this is what occurs. He talked about Viktor Yanukovych, he talked about how he was deposed, he talked about the elections in Ukraine, he talked about elections of Yanukovych and Poroshenko, and there was another guy, I can't remember his name, I knew it then, but I can't remember now, before Yanukovych, and I can't remember his name. Anyway, they conducted 3 elections, one after another, because the Western leaders did not accept that Yanukovych should win. Eventually he won. Nevertheless, Putin talks from a context. He prepares the context. It seemed to me that Tucker was not ready for that. He wanted, hey, why didn't you attack Ukraine? Because they're my enemy and the Western countries are against me. Okay, why didn't you do it now? Well, we did it now because we got enough of it. Okay, what? These kind of questions and answers. And unfortunately, I have to say that this is the way the interviews occur in the West. They're just pack, we don't have time. It was on Putin's time, and I was thinking, when do you rush, Tucker? You are on his time. How many times do you think you're going to have this opportunity to have this guy talk? Even if he goes, like that, let him talk. You're going to record that. It's your time. You're going to have, instead of having an hour to speak with this guy, you have 2 hours. And 2 hours they spoke. Now imagine Biden 2 hours. Now, okay, so Putin, every time he was given an answer, he was providing his context. That is what he knew about the issue. He wouldn't give, and the end, he was giving the answer. Sometimes direct, sometimes, I can't say more. One thing that I observed that Putin was that he was not talking for other people. For instance, Tucker Carlson asked me a few times, so what did he say in the conversation? He said, it's not proper for me to say what he said. Why don't you ask him? This is what I said. It's not diplomatic. He was very diplomatic with this one. So the conversation was about, as I said, Russia, history, Ukraine, NATO, then escalated to elections. Why did they attack? Who's fighting who? What's victory? Who's going to win eventually? Why would you agree to negotiate? And Putin said, we never said no. On the contrary, he said, and that's the clip I want to play, on the contrary, it was the Ukrainians who, he said, I think it was because of the Western countries, put that little edict, nobody should negotiate. Boom. He talks about Boris Johnson showing up and changing this guy's mind. He said it was a done deal then in March, after the Istanbul, they were signed, the initial thing. He said that he was duped. They were duped by they retreated from Kiev, and then the guys immediately pushed back. He said that that was a goodwill. Also, very interestingly, and I don't even understand. I didn't like that because, but I will tell you, obviously. Tucker Carlson asked about Evan Gorshevich from the Wall Street Journal, the one that was charged with espionage. If we all know he was, why would you release? He asked Putin if Putin would release Gerkovich, and he said, "Well, we are in contact with the other ones as a goodwill sign." Tucker said, and Putin said, "Well, no, we don't. We ran out of signs of goodwill. We're done with that. We have to wait for the other ones to initiate and do some signs of goodwill." According to Putin, obviously. He said, we're not going to give Gerkovich to anybody. They're going to do an exchange. That's between the partners. And he said the partners, he mentioned, thank you, Putin, he said, are the security services. So CIA. So those are the partners because they interact with them. He didn't call partners as he used to. The guys that want to pull a Gaddafi on him. Now, very interesting why Tucker was interested in Gerkovich. Just because he was one of some journalists that are incarcerated in Russia. He didn't inquire about Paul Whelan. Why was that? Tucker? Well, I can only guess. You don't want to make some friends somewhere? All right, I'm not saying AIPAC or anything like that, no. So here you have this conversation. Putin was calm, Tucker was calm, Tucker was talking louder, Putin was talking the same way. No yelling, didn't have to interrupt anything. Tucker interrupted Putin a few times. Putin leaned over a few times when he wanted to make a case about something, like an aggressive posture. The other, he held on that chair right there. I'm going to show you. All right, he held on that chair. See, they had the same chair, right there. It was a big hall here. That's a manuscript over there, or some documents on the table Putin gave him regarding some historical events from their archive. A guy showed up here. We see his butt coming over, giving them and going out. Very interesting. They both matched their shoes with their socks. I like that. He came dressed perfectly. This guy, I didn't expect anything less than that. But he usually, I saw him dressed with some shoes and I was like, what the hell is that, Tucker? Anyway, what else? He didn't drink. Tucker did not drink water. He drank one time out of that little cup with the cover. I don't know what was over there. Other than that, Tucker had a little list in his hand, which he dropped at the very beginning. He dropped it. He tried and then he dropped it over there, and that was it. Body language. Putin was open, leaning on the side, relaxed, open hands, nothing like that. He was looking into his eyes when he needed. When he was asked a question and he was given an answer, he didn't blink. I don't know, by training or because he was telling the truth, but he was not blinking. He was looking straight and he said it. Now, you can say, well, KGB training. It's an assumption. We don't go by that now, okay? Other than that, Putin was verbal. Putin was conscious, was logical, and was, how should I put it, energetic. Now, it's true that you can have all kind of things on you and be energetic. But he was capable for 2 hours, and he's 70, right? 70, 71, 70. I think he is 70. No, so this was it. Main points. Putin says these guys fooled us, which being the Americans, and they control the West, and they totally control, I was about to say Toronto, Canada, Ukraine, Toronto, Canada, losing my mind. All right, so he said that's what it is. Tucker asked him, when do you think this will end? He said, when these guys are going to stop arming Ukraine. It's going to end in 2 weeks. He said, in 2 weeks, everything will be over. Stop sending. And well, but again, Tucker asked him, do you want to take over Ukraine? I said, no, we don't want. We just want to get rid of the Nazi regime. What's denazification? Denazification, he said, well, denazification is, worshipping Bandera and others that collaborated, according to history, and with Hitler. And he said they need to have a different approach on their, as you said, Nazism and their nationalism, which he thinks that these things are rampant over there. On the other hand, Putin said, well, we are willing to negotiate anytime, but we're not going to be the first ones going to say it. We said many times, we're open. They have to do it. They have to do it. The West has to do it. Tell Zelensky, not Zelensky. And Tucker said, well, why don't you call the Americans? He said, it's not ours. They started something. Putin said the war started in 2014 with a coup. He said, when those guys started attacking the Russians in the eastern part, that's when it started. He also talked about Zakarpattia being Hungarian, or Hungarians being over there. Talk about Romanian territories too, over there in Ukraine, made up Ukraine when he was making a point. And Tucker asked him, I think that was typical, I would say, American journalism. Did you tell Orban that you're going to give him, or he can have Zakarpattia, or that part of Ukraine? And Putin said, yeah. No, he didn't say shit. He said, never talked about such a thing. Looked in his eye. No, never talked about such a thing with Orban. Again, I think it was anyway. So he said that's not for us to determine that. What else? Let's go back. Let's go to the end of the interview when Putin is going to tell us that the Westerners, he knows, the Westerners want to negotiate, but they don't know how to approach us. He said, we're open. He said, why don't you try to do it as a gentleman and try to save face? Do it delicately. So there's no person who lost and person who won. He said, he said, they won, but they don't know how to get out of it. This is Putin's take. And he's going to explain in this, I don't know, 4 minutes, maybe 3 minutes of the clip I'm going to play, what he said. And he's going to say, I know that. Well, how do you know? We'll find out. He also talks about CIA being involved in 2014 coup d'etat and CIA being involved in the Caucasus terrorism, as they call it, and training the Georgians and so on. So let's go here. Let's see. Din dva tre, what is it? Rad va tre, what?
Already said, and I didn't think you meant it as an insult because you already said correctly, it's been reported that Ukraine was prevented from negotiating a peace settlement by the former British Prime Minister acting on behalf of the Biden administration. So of course they're a satellite. Big countries control small countries. That's not new. And that's why I asked about dealing directly with the Biden administration, which is making these decisions, not President Zelensky.
By the way, Putin said he didn't speak with Biden since the war started, so 2 years. And he said, I don't remember when it was last time. I have other things more important to deal with than remembering that.
Ukraine.
Ну, если администрация Зеленского на Украине отказалась от переговоров,
well, if the Zelensky administration in Ukraine refused to negotiate, I assume they did it under the instruction from Washington. If Washington believes it to be the wrong decision, let it abandon it. Let it find a delicate excuse so that no one is insulted.
Delicate excuse. He said, we're willing to close an eye, but you have to move towards us.
Let it come up with a way out. It was not us who made this decision. It was them. So let them go back on it. That is it. However, they made the wrong decision, and now we have to look for a way out of the situation to correct their mistakes. They did it, so let them correct it themselves. We support this.
So I just want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding what you're saying. I don't think that I am. I think you're saying you want a negotiated settlement to what's happening in Ukraine.
Right. And we made it. We prepared the huge document in Istanbul that was initialed by the head of the Ukrainian delegation. He affixed his signature to some of the provisions, not to all of it. He put his signature and then he himself said, we were ready to sign it and the war would have been over long ago, 18 months ago. However, Prime Minister Johnson came, talked us out of it, and we missed that chance. Well, you missed it, you made a mistake, let them get back to that, that is all. Why do we have to bother ourselves and correct somebody else's mistakes? I know one can say it is our mistake. It was us who intensified the situation and decided to put an end to the war that started in 2014 in Donbass, as I have already said, by means of weapons. Let me get back to furthering history. I already told you this. We were just discussing it. Let us go back to 1991, when we were promised that NATO would not expand, to 2008, when the doors to NATO opened to the declaration of state sovereignty of Ukraine, declaring Ukraine a neutral state. Let us go back to the fact that NATO and US military bases started to appear on the territory of Ukraine, creating threats to us. Let us go back to coup d'etat in Ukraine in 2014. It is pointless though, isn't it? We may go back and forth endlessly, but they stopped negotiations. Is it a mistake? Yes. Correct it. We are ready. What else is needed?
Do you think it's too humiliating at this point for NATO to accept Russian control of what was 2 years ago Ukrainian territory?
I said, let them think how to do it with dignity. There are options if there is a will. Up until now, there has been the uproar and screaming about inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia on the battlefield. Now they are apparently coming to realize that it is difficult to achieve, if possible at all. In my opinion, it is impossible by definition. It is never going to happen.
Never.
It seems to me that now those who are in power in the West have come to realize this as well. If so, if the realization has set in, they have to think what to do next. We are ready for this dialogue.
Would you be willing to say, congratulations, NATO, you won, and just keep the situation as it is now?
What the fuck?
Ну, вы знаете, это предмет переговоров.
You know, it is a subject matter for the negotiations. No one is willing to conduct, or to put it more accurately,
Точнее сказать, хотят.
they are willing but do not know how to do it. I know they want to. It is not just
I know it, but they don't know how to do it.
I see it, but I know they do want it. But they're struggling to understand how to do it. They have driven the situation to the point where we are at. It is not us who have done that. It is our partners, opponents who have done that. Well, now let them think how to reverse the situation. We're not against it. It would be funny if it were not so sad.
All right, well, this is it. This is it. He's for it. You created, and that's what he said. And he said, I know they want to get out. Now, if he knows or not, that's another thing. I know they want, but they don't know how to get it. It's delicate. You can do it. We're here to work with you. You just have to come. But that's not going to happen for now. Maybe. And he also says that they are in contact, CIA with, CIA is in contact with the Russian services. So here it is, my friends. How should I put it? Nothing surprised me. Tucker pushed him a few times on who's in charge of America, who's deciding. So not the president. Remember that thing with glasses with black suits and ties showing up. The president. He was aiming for that, and he said, well, definitely that's many factors over there. It's very complicated. He didn't come put it and said, like he talked with those guys from the Le Figaro, I think it was, that my friends and thank you very much, sent me that clip that I lost. I saw it, I don't know, like 12 years ago, whatever it was. I can't remember, 8 years, I can't remember how much. But you guys, when I cried here, you sent it to me, and I thank you very much. I saved it forever. Not that because Putin says it, but it makes sense. It makes sense. So he was asked if he would deal with another administration again. He said, well, again, doesn't matter. It's just they have to decide on their own, the Americans. So yeah, he's ready. But there's one thing what he says. The other thing what probably they do. Not surprised with what he said. It was interesting to see them together. I would say this. I'll be honest with you. Now that it is the end of the video, I wasn't impressed whatsoever with Tucker's questions. I don't understand why. I expected different kind of questions. They talked about China as well. They talked about BRICS, the dollarization. I forgot about the dollarization, the oil, but the dollar in particular, but about the about the Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2 pipelines, and Putin said, well, you guys did it, basically. And the CIA, he said, look at who wants to do it and who has the capability. The same is very logical, but, you know, I would give this interview a 6 out of 10. That's what I would give. I would give a 5, but because I say a 6 because it's good for historical reviews. When I'm gonna look again and see, oh, that guy interviewed that guy. I expected more. I mean, maybe I'm just but I would have asked other questions. I don't know if he was not allowed to ask certain questions. Have no idea. But I like the conversation. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.